Honesty that would shatter the Brown family for all eternity was about to be uttered. The courthouse stood towering above the gray sky, a citadel of honesty and justice. Men and women had been waiting in line since the break of dawn. Journalists with microphones in hand, cameras snapping as they attempted to get every possible view of the Brown family entering. This was no ordinary trial. This was the fall of a dynasty. Inside, the atmosphere was oppressive. It wasn't the heavy oak walls or the echoing footsteps. It was the tension. The silence in the courtroom wasn't empty. It was loaded, like before a storm. All seats were occupied, from the curious observers to the gossip-seeking tabloids. Everyone wanted to see the fall of the now infamous polygamous empire. In the middle of it all sat Gwen Brown. She seemed small sitting in front of the high wooden benches, but her pull was strong. Her hands shook, holding onto the table in front of her, as if it were her final hold on sanity. Her eyes darted between fear and determination. She was afraid, yes, but she was determined. She knew that today the course of her life, and that of her family's legacy, would be forever altered. Across from her was Kody Brown, once so proud and patriarchal. His golden curls were mussed, his jaw set, and his eyes blazed with anger. He sat back in his chair, arms crossed hard, looking at his daughter like a traitor in his kingdom. Every fiber of his being shouted rage. To his side sat Gwen's mother, Kody Brown. She was not angry. At least, not openly so. But she was conflicted. Her hands were tightly clenched on her lap, the nails digging deep into her palms. She was panicked, her heart racing as she stood there, conflicted between hurt and fierce maternal protection. She ached to go to Gwen, to hold her, to protect her. But she also ached to scream out for the truth. And Robin Brown, the so-called favorite wife, seated just behind Kody, her fluttering hands gripped a pen in anxious hold. She appeared to wish to dissolve into the background, but her telltale wide eyes gave her away. Every twitch of feeling on Gwen's face, every tense movement of Kody's shoulders, every flare of Kody's nostrils, Robin observed them all, soaking up the tempest about to break. The suspense thickened second by second. Even the attorneys could feel it. They fumbled through their papers, clearing their throats, anticipating the time to come. The court stenographer sat poised, fingers ready to tap out each incendiary sentence. Then, crack, the judge's gavel came down, its report ringing like a pistol through the quiet room. Each head jerked forward. "All rise," the bailiff said. The judge, a severe-looking woman with sharp eyes, came in. She wasn't here to watch drama. She wasn't here to hear rumors. But she was aware, as everybody was, that this was not an ordinary case. As soon as the judge sat down, she surveyed the courtroom. Her eyes fell on Gwen. "Miss Brown," she stated authoritatively, her voice cutting through the air, "this court is aware that you have something important to reveal. Do you want to continue?" The room was silent. Cameras softly clicked. Gwen swallowed hard. Her fingers gripped the table tightly until the knuckles whitened. She looked at her mother, whose eyes silently pleaded with her to remain strong. Then at her father, whose glare threatened fury. Her lips shook. For 3 months, she had kept this secret inside. Deep down, for 3 months, she had battled the whispers, the nightmares, the terror of what would occur if the truth ever came out. And now she stood here, with no return. "Yes, Your Honor," Gwen breathed, her voice a barely audible whisper. The judge leaned across the bench. "Speak loudly for the record." The silence lasted, choking. You heard the distant hum of fluorescent lights above, the scratch of a reporter's pen, the creak of a chair as someone leaned forward. At last, Gwen shut her eyes, drew in a breath, and spoke the words that would blast the courtroom. "I'm pregnant." For an instant, the world froze. Then pandemonium. Gasps broke out across the benches. Journalists almost toppled one another, writing madly. Some fans put their hands over their mouths. Others whispered in shock. The room was a hive of scandal and surprise. Kody's eyes went wide as if she had been hit. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Tears sprang instantly to her eyes. This was her daughter, her little girl, and yet she felt blindsided, shattered. Kody, on the other hand, responded with fury. His fist came crashing down upon the table with a deafening bang, causing the microphones to vibrate. His face reddened, veins throbbing at his temples. "What did you just say?" he roared, his voice booming like the rumble of a lion. "You have the nerve to stand there and embarrass this family in this manner?" Robin gasped so hard it was heard throughout the room. Her hand shot up to her mouth, her eyes flicking from Kody to Gwen, as if she were seeing a car wreck in slow motion. The judge pounded her gavel once more. "Order! Order in this court!" But there was no holding the madness now. The Brown Empire that had been constructed on the basis of the illusion of cohesiveness and belief was crumbling under the weight of one disastrous secret. The attorneys attempted to regain control, but their voices were overwhelmed by the gasps and whispers. Gwen sat transfixed, tears falling silently down her face. She wanted to be strong. She wanted to stand upright, but the pressure of every eye in that room crushed her like a mountain. Kody leaned forward, his voice low and venomous. "You've ruined us, Gwen. Do you get it? You've ruined everything." Christine bristled, her words shaking with rage. "She's your daughter, Kody, and all you're concerned with is your reputation." The air snapped with a whip-like intensity. Christine's allegiance for the first time in years was no longer to Kody, no longer to the family reputation, but to her daughter. The courtroom was not as much a hall of justice and more of a battlefield. Every sentence, every glare, every cry was another weapon seized. And all along, Gwen remained in the middle, shaking but intact. She had finally spoken her truth, and even though it had exploded like a bomb, she felt, in the tiniest recess of her heart, that it was just the start of freedom, because secrets don't just tear families apart. They give you wings to fly. And the world just learned Gwen Brown's secret. This was not just a pregnancy. It was a scandal that could ruin everything. The courtroom air no longer remained stagnant. It crackled with electricity fueled by hysteria and shock. Gwen's hushed admission had exploded like a bomb, and now the tremors spread across all the corners of the room. The audience leaned in, abuzz with incredulity. Journalists frantically scratched pen across notebook, already envisioning tomorrow's salacious front pages. Brown family shatters, daughter's shock pregnancy uncovered in court. In the midst of the mayhem, Gwen sat shaking, her head lowered, tears forming at the edges. She had been prepared for gasps. She had been prepared for whispers. But she hadn't been prepared for the seething fury fermenting across from her. Kody Brown leapt from his chair, his face flushed with rage, his voice thundering so loudly the walls shook. "You did this to destroy me," he bellowed, his finger thrusting the air like a dagger. "You wanted to embarrass this family, to embarrass me before the world." Gasps swept through the gallery. Cameras snapped wildly. Christine stood up, her voice quick and defensive. "She didn't do this to you, Kody. This isn't about you." But Kody was relentless, venom spewing from her lips. "Everything is always about me, Christine. I created this family. I created this legacy. And now she's ruined it with one selfish act." Christine's face reddened, anger and heartbreak. Her voice trembled as she swung to Gwen. "Why didn't you come to me, sweetheart? Why did you hide this from me?" Gwen's mouth opened, but she could not find her voice. "I was afraid." The words shattered in the air, tiny but laden with weight. "Afraid?" Kody snapped. "Afraid of what? Afraid of telling the truth? Or afraid because you know you've brought shame on all of us?" Christine's eyes flashed to him, burning with indignation. "Don't you ever speak of her as a disgrace, Kody. She's your child." The courtroom erupted into loud buzz now, the judge pounding her gavel over and over. "Order, order in the court." But the gavel was no match for Brown's fury. Robin Brown gasped loudly, from the corner of the room, her hands clasped to her chest, as if she couldn't catch her breath. Her eyes were wide, as if witnessing a building implode in slow motion, as she stared from Gwen to Christine and Kody. "This can't be happening," she said quietly under her breath. The attorneys attempted to interrupt, but their words were lost in the tempest. The prosecutor waved a hand. "Your Honor, if we might," But Kody interrupted, pointing at Gwen with shaking hands. Tell us now, who is the father? The courtroom fell silent in an instant. Even the reporters were frozen, pens suspended in mid-air. Christine's eyes went wide, her voice cracking. Gwen, who did this to you? Gwen's heart raced against her chest. Her throat was constricted, her hands clammy. She moved her mouth, but there was no sound. The quietness was ear-piercing, each moment extending like forever. She finally managed to whisper, I can't. That one denial was kerosene on Kody's anger. He pounded his fists on the table, leaning forward to stare inches from his daughter's face across the aisle. You can't? Or you won't. Because to me that sounds like guilt. Christine leaped to her feet once more, angry. Sit down, Kody. You're not a dad right now. You're a tyrant. I'm the only one who is concerned about this family's reputation, he shouted back. The judge banged her gavel so loudly it was like thunder. Mr. Brown, you will sit down and be quiet, or I will charge you with contempt. Grumblingly, Kody slumped into his seat, still angry, his glare fixed on Gwen like knives. Gwen sat immobilized, tears running freely. She had pictured this moment 100 different ways, but not like this. She had thought perhaps her mother would be upset with her, perhaps her father would be disappointed. But she had not envisioned this courtroom as a war zone, in which her own worth as a daughter was being torn asunder. Christine turned to her, gentler now, her voice breaking. Gwen, honey, you're 3 months pregnant. This is no longer about you. We need to know, who is the father? The question hung there, oppressive and thick. Everyone steeled themselves, leaning forward, hungry for the answer. The quiet went on until it was unbearable. But Gwen didn't say a word. Her silence was louder than any admission. The crowd exploded again, muttering wildly, guessing in the dark. Journalists wrote potential names, each one poised to foment a firestorm. Was it a friend? A stranger? Someone connected to the family? The judge at last held up her hand for silence. Miss Brown, the court requires the disclosure of this information. If you do not comply, we will take further action. But Gwen sat hunched and silent, hands shaking. She couldn't. Not now. Christine leaned back into her seat, defeated, her silent tears streaming. Robin huddled against Kody, shouting in her ear. But Kody's gaze was fixed on Gwen, his anger coming off him in waves of heat. The courtroom no longer existed as a temple of law and order. It was a mess. It was agony. It was betrayal laid bare in scalding light. And for the Browns, this was just the tip of the iceberg, because Gwen's silence didn't just incite anger, it incited suspicion. And suspicion, in a family already broken by decades of deception, was a much more deadly thing than truth. What began as Gwen's truth became the family's worst downfall. The gavel snapped again, but thunder in a storm, loud, but unable to hush the commotion. The courtroom erupted with voices, the voice of betrayal lingering in the air. The news of Gwen being pregnant was no longer a secret. It was dynamite, igniting every crack the Browns had attempted to keep under wraps. The judge's voice sliced through. Enough, this court will have order. The whispers ceased, but the tension hung heavy. All eyes were on the Browns, the infamous polygamous family that was splitting apart on the witness stand. Christine broke the silence first, her voice shaking but retaining a mother's anguish. She stood facing Gwen. Sweetheart, I taught you to be strong, to tell the truth. Why did you keep this from me? From us? Her tone wasn't cold. It was desperate. Christine wasn't requesting information. She was pleading for comprehension. Gwen swiped at her cheeks, her voice cracking. Because I knew no one would listen to me. Not really. In this family, everyone is always yelling. No one hears. The words cut like a knife. Kody moved forward, his expression twisting. That's a lie. You had every opportunity to come to me. But no, you take us to court. Embarrass us as if you're boasting of this. Christine snapped, spinning to confront him. Boasting? Kody, do you hear yourself? She's afraid. She's in pain. And all you're concerned about is your image. Kody barked back, banging his fist on the table. My reputation is this family's livelihood. Christine, Without it, we don't exist. Do you want the world to think we're a circus? Do you want every headline ridiculing us? Christine's voice shattered like glass. They already do, Kody. You did that when you prioritized pride over love. You did that when you let this family fall apart. Gasps ran through the courtroom. The judge eyebrows raised. Mrs. Brown, if your comments relate to the case. But Christine wasn't done. She looked at Gwen, now crying tears. You're right, honey. We let you down. I let you down. I should have seen your hurt. I should have been there. Her confession made the room go quiet. For the very first time, Christine wasn't defending herself or passing blame. She was laying bare the tender open wound of motherhood. But Kody couldn't allow it to go unchallenged. His voice boomed a second time. No, you don't get to be the victim. Christine, all of this, is because you let her go wild. You egged her on in her rebellion. You allowed her to believe that she could live outside this family's morals. And now look, she's embarrassed us to pieces. Christine whirled on him, anger burning. Don't you dare blame me for your failures as a father. The crowd burst into whispers once again. Some of them nodded. Some shook their heads. But all of them felt the cutting edge of her words. The judge's gavel came down. Enough of this marital squabble. This court is not an arena for your personal war. But it was too late. The courtroom was no longer a trial. It was a mirror, reflecting years of heartache, betrayal, and dysfunction. Gwen, still sitting, finally gained her voice. Her hands trembled, but her words were firm. This is why I didn't say anything. This right here. Because no matter what, it always gets turned into your war, your pride, your rage. I'm the one who's having this baby. And yet somehow you've managed to make it all about you. Her voice increased. Firm now. I'm not on trial today. You are. The room stood still. Kody's eyes went wide. His jaw clenched. How dare you? But Gwen didn't let up. You speak of family, but what have you contributed to us? Christine cried out for love. And you contributed indifference. Mom Janelle struggled for respect. And you contributed betrayal. Mary tried to cling. And you contributed loneliness. And me? You contributed nothing. Except your anger. And now that I finally find the courage to speak, you seek to silence me with shame. Her words pierced deeper than any cross-examination by any lawyer. Christine covered her face, crying. Robin shifted awkwardly, whispering something to Kody. But he was immobile, his anger fighting his humiliation. The prosecutor finally broke his silence. Your Honor, it's obvious that this case is no longer about inheritance or money. The Browns themselves are coming apart before our eyes. This is a family in crisis. The judge's eyes tightened. She leaned forward. Miss Brown is right. What we are experiencing here is a legacy tainted with secrets and vanity. And this court will not let it spiral into anarchy. If the father of the child is involved with the family, or with its business, it will be revealed. The words hung like a prophecy. Christine reached out, finally resting a trembling hand on Gwen's shoulder. We'll get through this. Together. But Gwen only looked forward. Her eyes red but resolute. No, Mom. This isn't just about us getting through it. This is about the truth finally coming out. All of it. The crowd grumbled louder. Reporters wrote frantically. This was no longer Gwen's pregnancy. This was the breaking down of the Brown dynasty. Piece by piece, secret by secret, and everybody knew. The worst was yet to come. One name would silence the room, and change everything forever. The courtroom hummed like a beehive, whispers and gasps, making the rounds in the crowd as if Gwen's secret had already shattered the Browns' dynasty. But now, it wasn't merely her being pregnant. It was about that question that hung over them all unanswered. Who was the father? The judge inclined forward, her eyes keen. Miss Brown, clarity is required here by the court. You've attested to being 3 months pregnant. Now we need to know the father's identity. Is he related to this family, or the family's finances? There was such silence. You could hear a rustle of paper from a reporter's notebook. Christine's breathing stopped. She grabbed at Gwen's hand once more. Honey, just be honest. Don't let this consume you. Kody's voice boomed out in the room. Say it now. Cease hiding behind secrets. Who did this to you? Who tainted our reputation? Gwen's eyes shone with tears. But her jaw hardened. She knew it was the moment. The moment to set her free or break her under the weight of shame. She closed her eyes, took a shaky breath, and whispered, "It's someone close." The words fell like rocks into a quiet pond and rippled out into the room with horror. Christine tensed. Robin stopped breathing. One hand pressed against her chest. Kody glared, leaning forward. His voice husky. "Close? What are you saying close?" Gwen's lips quivered. But her voice firmed. "I mean, it's someone involved with this family. Someone who should have looked out for me." But instead, she stopped, gasping. The courtroom gasped. The prosecutor rose. "Your Honor, this is an important admission. Miss Brown, we require a name." The judge's tone was stern. "Miss Brown, I realize this is hard, but this court will not continue on half-truths. Who is the father of your child?" All heads were turned toward Gwen. All pens above papers for every reporter. All air in the room seemed suspended. Finally, her hands shaking and tears streaming her face, Gwen uttered the name. The resulting silence was more deafening than any scream. Christine's face folded, tears streaming immediately. "No? My God, no." Robin let her pen fall, her jaw dropping in shock. Her eyes flashed to Kody, then back to Gwen, as if she couldn't possibly believe what she'd just heard. And Kody blanched. The blood left his face. His mouth dropped open. But he made no sound. He resembled a man hit by lightning. Immobile, stunned, devastated. The courtroom dissolved into pandemonium. The gasps, the screams, the reporters yelling questions. The noise was thunderous. The judge brought her gavel down repeatedly, her voice echoing, "Order, order in this court." But nothing could settle the tempest. Kody finally gained his voice, standing up with a bellow that rattled the benches. "This is a lie. A dirty, vile lie." He gestured at Gwen, his fingers shaking with fury. "You're attempting to ruin me, to throw me into the mire. I will not allow you to destroy me with this libel." But Gwen's voice broke through his fury, shaking but unbreakable. "It's the truth. And you know it." The room came to a standstill. Christine buried her face in her hands, crying. Robin gazed at Kody with big, shocked eyes, as if she suddenly beheld him for what he actually was. The prosecutor's tone was clipped. "Mr. Brown, are you denying Miss Brown's statement under oath?" Kody's voice cracked with fury. "Of course I'm denying it. This is madness." But the damage was done. The accusation, the name Gwen had spoken, hung in the air like poison. The reporters had already written their headlines. "Betrayal within Brown family scandal explodes in court." The judge's voice at last broke through the tumult. "This court will hear these allegations in full. If Miss Brown speaks the truth, it is not merely a moral breakdown, but possibly one of a criminal nature." The words crashed into the room like hammer blows. Christine jumped to her feet, shuddering all over. She spun on Kody, her voice trembling. "You ruined us. Do you get it? You ruined everything we ever had." Kody's face contorted, pride fighting against the downfall of his kingdom. He screamed, "I am the victim here. I am the one being slandered. You will all regret this." But Gwen stood, voice clear now, ringing out above the din. "No, Dad. The only thing we regret is ever letting you rule over us with fear." The room grew silent once more. For the first time, Gwen's voice was not only filled with fear, but with strength. Christine moved in beside her daughter, finally taking a stand. "I believe you, Gwen. And I will stand by you." Robin, pale, said nothing. She gazed at Kody with wide, unblinking eyes, as if the ground beneath her had just disappeared. The judge's gavel came down once more. "This court is adjourned until further notice. But make no mistake, the truth will come out." While the room erupted once more in talk, Gwen and Christine departed hand in hand, flashes from cameras surrounding them. Behind them Kody slumped, his empire disintegrating, in slow motion. His face, once full of anger, now contorted with something else entirely. Fear. Because the secret was out. The betrayal was no longer buried. And nothing, no lies, no pride, no empire could cover it up again. The Brown legacy wasn't just shaken. It was shattered. The courtroom cleared like a battlefield after war. Papers scattered on the floor. Murmurs fading out into the corridor. And journalists dashing to spread the scandal just exploded. But within the chamber, the reverberation of Gwen's admission still clung in the air, dense and oppressive. For Kody Brown, the self-proclaimed patriarch once so proud, all of that had been torn apart in the matter of seconds. His persona, so meticulously built up over decades of cameras, weddings and domination, now rested in shambles. He slumped hunched at the defense table, his fingers clenched over the edge as if he could possibly keep from falling apart, the empire disintegrating in his hands. Christine, though, stood strong, not as a wife subject to Kody's authority, but as a mother claiming back her voice. She grasped Gwen's hand firmly, her tears gone, her eyes burning with resolve. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she whispered. Gwen nodded, although her voice trembled. "I am now. For the first time, I actually feel free." Journalists flooded the courthouse steps. "Gwen, Christine, do you still stand behind your claims? Will criminal charges be filed? Will this be the end of the Brown family?" Christine set her chin. She didn't provide them with the scandal they had hoped for. She provided them with truth. "I believe my daughter. I will stand behind her forever." And as for the rest, she turned back toward the courtroom doors, where Kody remained hovering in the background. Let the truth speak for itself. The cameras flashed around their faces. But Christine and Gwen kept going, their strides firm, their friendship unshakable. Within, Kody was still fighting. His lawyer leaned in close, voice hushed. "You have to calm down. If you continue to blow up in court, you'll seem guilty." Kody's eyes blazed. "I am guilty of nothing. She's lying. She's doing this to destroy me." He slammed his fist on the table, then froze when he saw Robin watching him. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, her eyes wet with tears. "Kody," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Tell me it isn't true. Tell me Gwen is lying." For the first time, Kody stumbled. His words lagged, faltering. "Robin, you know me. You know I'd never—" But she moved back, her head shaking. "Do I?" Her words cut deeper than any attack. For years she had stood up for him, trusted him, even when the other wives had turned their backs. But now, she saw the fissures. She saw the man behind the mask. And for once she didn't bound to his side. The judge called court again, later that week for an emergency hearing. The world was attentive now. The scandal had gone viral. Headlines blazed across every news source. Brown family implodes. Daughter's shocking confession. Kody Brown accused in courtroom bombshell. Truth versus empire. The collapse of polygamy's power couple. Each camera in America seemed directed at that courthouse. The room was filled with reporters, onlookers, and even former friends of the Browns, who once revered Kody's rule. When the judge walked in, after considering the testimony and evidence, the judge started, her voice serious. "This court cannot turn a blind eye to the seriousness of the charges brought. A complete investigation will continue, and safeguards will be imposed on Miss Gwen Brown. On a temporary basis, Mr. Kody Brown will come under the scrutiny of the court. His assets financially and his power under the family trust will be temporarily suspended." The words slammed Kody like a clap of thunder. "What?" he bellowed, standing up. "You can't do that to me. That belongs to me. I constructed it all." But the sound of the judge's gavel stopped him. "No, Mr. Brown. What you constructed was on control, secrecy and intimidation. And that time is through." Christine's eyes shut, relief etched on her face. Gwen burrowed into her mother's shoulder. Finally safe. The aftermath spread like wildfire. Ex-wives Janelle and Mary, absent from court, issued supportive statements about Gwen. "She's brave. She's telling her truth. And it's time the world listened." Fans who had rallied behind Kody defected, their words pouring onto social media.
We stand with Gwen. Kody's empire is finished. Christine and Gwen are the real survivors here. Meanwhile, Robin said nothing. She was torn between the man she had given everything for and the harsh reality in front of her. The coup de grace came weeks later, when Gwen appeared in court once more. But this time not shaking, but firm, head held high. She met the judge's eye. Your Honor, I was here in fear. But today I am no longer in fear. I know that the truth cannot be concealed. And I will not be silent. Not for anyone. The courtroom burst into applause, the sound ringing out like a triumph song. Christine crying as tears streamed down her face. Breathe, that's my daughter. Kody, on the other hand, sat hunched in his chair. Not thundering patriarch. Not intimidating ruler of a polygamous empire. But shattered man as he saw his authority crumble to dust. The gavel fell. This case shall proceed with the force of truth. Court is adjourned. And like that, the Brown legacy was finished. Not in triumph, but with the heart of a daughter who would not be silenced. As Gwen and Christine stepped out into the sunlight, cameras flashing, Christine wrapped her arm around her daughter. And said, "You've done something no one else could. Gwen," she said softly, "you've broken his chains. And you've given us back our freedom." Gwen smiled through her tear. Then maybe this wasn't the end of our family. Maybe it's the beginning of a new one. And with that they walked away. Not as victims, but as survivors. With the truth that would forever alter the Brown name. Because in the end empires come tumbling down. But courage? Courage never dies.